Well, I think there's a lot of fear mongering going on. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you're accusing the FBI of Gestapo tactics, things of that nature. You're crossing a line rhetorically.
Well,
I mean,
you also have the FBI involved in the Russia hoax that went on for years and years and years.
You're the acting Secretary of Homeland Security.
And so that is concerning. That's concerning.
Don't you
can't
just
just
stand
blow
by the
that.
FBI?
You just can't. I stand by law enforcement. Absolutely.
The FBI?
I stand by the FBI. Do they need to be reformed? Absolutely. But you can still be supportive
FBI is run by a Trump appointee.
You can still be for federal law enforcement and for the law enforcement mission and still hold them accountable and say they still need to be reformed from time to time. The two are not mutually exclusive. So there is no issue with that at all.
Let me ask you about January 6th, because the Washington Post reported that your text messages, along with those of your acting deputy, Ken Cuccinelli, are missing for a key period leading up to the attack. Messages are also missing for the Secret Service from that same period. You were the acting Secretary of Homeland Security at the time when some of this was going on. Were you texting about what might happen on January 6th?
No.
What happened to those text messages?
Well, I saw the public reporting probably at the same time that you did that said that some of the text messages were missing. That's news to me. I returned all of my equipment, whether it was laptops or all the different computers I had, secure equipment, and unclassified equipment, as well as phones, back to the department. They have all my records. They have all my emails. They have all my documents. They have everything. And so it's baffling to me.
Should those messages have been?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. Anytime you work on a government equipment, a computer or a phone of some kind, those are all, I was always told that those were always there. You know, there's always backups, but they were there for the federal government. The federal government owns that. So whether I was texting on my government phone, which I did from time to time, but not a lot, or the emails that were all on my computers, all of that should be record and should be at the department.
And you were interviewed by the January 6th committee. Were you warned at any point that the Vice President, Mike Pence, might be in danger on January 6th?
By the January 6th committee?
No. I'm just saying that you were interviewed by the committee.
I was interviewed, yes.
I assume that subject may have come up. Perhaps it didn't, but I'm asking you. It did not. Okay. Well, let me ask you this. While you were the acting Secretary of Homeland Security, was it ever brought to your attention that Vice President Mike Pence might be in danger on January 6th?
No.
Did not happen.
It did not happen. I talked to the Secret Service director on the 6th, and there was no concerns.
And what about the 25th Amendment? Apparently there were discussions going on among Trump cabinet members about whether or not the 25th Amendment should be used to remove the president at the time from power. Were you involved in any of those discussions? Were you aware of any of those discussions?
No, I've heard public reporting. This seems to be, one of many, many rumors going around. I was never involved in any, nor do I know of anyone that was ever involved in it.
And you saw the aide to Mark Meadows, the then White House Chief of Staff, Cassidy Hutchinson. She testified that there was some sort of altercation in the president's vehicle as all of this was unfolding on January 6th. He wanted to be taken up to the Capitol that day, according to Ms. Hutchinson, and there was an altercation that occurred, according to her testimony. Does that ring a bell? Was that ever brought to your attention? Were you briefed on that?
No. Not only was that sort of episode or reporting that she described, it was never obviously brought to my attention. But what I know about, obviously I had Secret Service protection as acting secretary and know the type of vehicles that they operate in. I can't imagine that scenario unfolding under any number of circumstances, and I'm happy to walk that through. But what she described in the president's act,
were there any security concerns brought to your attention?
It's unfathomable to me on how that would actually play out. I think it's totally ludicrous.
And what about Trump not doing anything for 187 minutes while this was going on? Failing to make any effort to tell the rioters to leave. What's your response to that?
Well, I know the president.
Was that a dereliction of duty on his part?
I don't think so. I know the president talked about wanting to go to the Capitol in a peaceful way. Look, at the time of January 6th, I think I was one of the first cabinet officials that came out and said, look, the president needs to talk about this more. I I believe that at the time, but I think he addressed it. Look, at the end of the day, we've got to hold individuals who decided to go to the Capitol. Individuals made their own choice when they decided to go to the Capitol, and then when they decided to enter the Capitol to make certain decisions. And I think you got to hold those individuals accountable, holding other individuals accountable.
Trump saying you got to fight like hell. All of those things that he was saying on January 6th? You don't hold him accountable in any way?
Well, I think it's also interesting, he mentions doing that peacefully several times during that speech. He didn't mention that. So I think it's important to keep in context the full flavor of, again, how he was addressing that crowd.
Let me show you this picture of something from your former Instagram account. This is a picture of you back in September of 2020, working with your cybersecurity infrastructure security agency director, Chris Krebs, at the time. And it shows you talking about how you were hoping for a secure election in 2020. He has since said, obviously, and you know this, that it was a secure and free and fair election. You agree with him on that?
Well, I certainly...
And that Joe Biden won the election fair and square?
Well, let me address the photo that you showed. Obviously, working with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, what we call CISA at the department, their mission is very tailored, which is to make sure that elections are free from any cybersecurity threats. And certainly during 2020, we were focused on foreign threats because of the intel that we had seen at the time. What DHS does not do, what CISA does not do, is talk about election fraud. We don't have that jurisdiction. We don't have those authorities. That's the Department of Justice. And so
you think there was election fraud?
I think there's a number of election irregularities, illegalities, and fraud. And I think that's been widely reported
but enough
on both
to,
the right
but
and the
enough
left.
But enough to alter the outcome of the 2020 election?
Are you
an election denier?
I would say any type of fraud, any type of election fraud. No, this is important. Any type of, I don't want to just bypass, was it a little or is it a lot, right? Any election fraud should be addressed. And I don't think we can say just, hey, there's a little fraud, so that's okay.
Who won the
at the end of the day?
Chad,
I think that's very important.
Who won the 2020 election?
Obviously, Joe Biden is president.
No.
I mean, there is no. I just answered your question.
No, but he is the president, obviously.
He is the president.
I've seen folks from Trump world parse this out and say, okay, Joe Biden is president. We know that. Okay, that is a matter of fact. Do you believe that he won that election fair and square?
I believe that. I just answered the question first. Let me answer it in two parts. One, Joe Biden is president. Two, a number of irregularities, illegalities, and fraud occurred during 2020.
But not sufficient to throw.
Again, I don't have all of that evidence. I think there's been a number of reporting.
You sound like a conspiracy theorist. You sound like an election
How is that
denialist.
a conspiracy theorist?
Because Chad,
let's look at
that Joe
Wisconsin.
Biden won the election.
Let's look at
he
Wisconsin.
won the election.
Wisconsin Supreme Court says that the way they use drop boxes
did not want to have anything to do with
the way they use drop boxes were illegal in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So how do you sit there and say that is a conspiracy theory when that happens to be the facts?
Yeah, the Supreme Court wanted nothing to do with anything.
Well,
any of these challenges.
That's fine.
Trump lost over and over and over again. Why not accept that? Why not move on?
I have moved on. And so what we're doing at the America First Policy Institute through our Center for Election Integrity
but you had Donald Trump
is actually talking about a lot of these issues at the state level where we talk about voter ID, we talk about scrubbing voter rolls, we talk about same-day election voting. Look, you asked me the question, so I'm answering it. If you want to look back to 2020, I'm focused on looking forward. We've got midterms, and then obviously we have a presidential.
Should Donald Trump still be out there peddling the election lies?
Look, I'm happy to continue to answer questions about President Trump. But I think polling every single day.
You think he's lying about the 2020 election?
Polling will say both folks on the left and the right do not have confidence in our election system, and that's a problem. And I think that's what we should be focused on. How do we solve these problems so that when we have the midterms in a couple of months and we have...
Our elections are fine.
Chad, there's fraud in our election system, and if people don't acknowledge that, then that becomes part of the problem.
You are the former acting Secretary of Homeland Security, and you're spreading doubt and fear and
not doubt
about our election process.
These facts. These are simple facts.
These are alternative facts.
Jim,
you're
saying there's no fraud.
Joe Biden won the election fair and square.
Are you saying there's no fraud in our election system?
Of course there are some episodes of fraud here and there.
That's what I'm talking about.
Bill Barr, the Attorney General, said this was BS. Why not accept it? Move on.
Jim, this is what I'm talking about. There are a number of irregularities, illegalities, and fraud when we talk about our election system.
Not sufficient to alter the outcome of the
election.
Look,
I certainly don't know that. I'm not in charge of that. But what I would say, even if there's a small amount, that is worth coming together and trying to solve that at a national level and at a state level so that we can get past this, so that we have some integrity in our elections.
Well, we need to have integrity, but we also need to have integrity among officials who work in the government and who have left the government, who will tell the American people the truth.
And I think we need to have, we certainly need to have some integrity by those reporting the news as well.
And we do have that integrity, but we expect that of our elected leaders and people who work under them, because you can't continue to sow these seeds of doubt about American democracy. It's simply failing the American people to continue to lead them down this path of lies.